Do you have any idea how many times I've started recording just for my ramblings to become nonsensical? Um, it's almost happening even right now into this introduction of the first episode of the Punch podcast. Um, Many of you know me as Pika Punch over from Twitch, and if you know me from any other outlets, though my social media may be smaller, then cool, awesome. I appreciate you being here. But I know a lot of you are going to be listening for the first time and being introduced to me for the first time, so I kind of wanted to take a little bit to let you know a little bit about myself. Like I said, many know me as Pika Punch over on Twitch. I got the name from a pretty obvious Pokemon card. Uh, Oh, I was trying not to say Pokemon. Maybe I'll bleep myself out there. But a pretty obvious franchise. But the way I like to explain it is, in Spanish, Pika means like spicy, like it's spicy. And it's spelled with the C. But also in Japanese, Pika means, well, Pika Pika is like a glimmer or sparkle. And Punch really just came from the fact that back in the day of MySpace and the dawn of Facebook before it became a huge thing, all the little emo kids needed some type of alliteration in their name, so Punch went perfect with Pika. But if you don't know my real name, which many of you don't, my name is Cesar, and you can call me either. People who may or may not be on this podcast will refer to me as either, so if you ever get confused, just so you know. But most people refer to me as Pika. And yeah, that's a little backstory on my name. It's weird getting this going and it being sensical. I've tried recording this intro like 4 or 5 times, and it's terrible each time. I'm glad that this is going pretty good. But yeah, I wanted to start this podcast because the first iteration of it, which was entirely on Twitch, was used so that I could, I guess, get to know the community, get to know other streamers. I pretty much use it to make friends, I guess you could say. And I got to meet a lot of amazing people. I got to be introduced to a bunch of really supportive communities, and had it not been for Punch, the first iteration of Punched, I don't think I would have met as many people as I did. So I owe a lot to that series. It's unbearable. It's not very watchable. It's kind of awkward, but it's still on Twitch. It still exists. Many episodes are still on there in a playlist. If you can stomach it, if you can bear listening to terrible ramblings from myself, but awesome guests, I will tell you that. So you may be wondering, like, whoa, okay, well, you're listening to a podcast, you're doing a podcast now. What happened? Well, after, I guess, a burnout early on in my Twitch streaming career, which it really isn't a career, I don't know why I just said that, but early on in me Twitch streaming, I burnt out pretty bad because I would stream for like 6 hours at a time at least, and it was pretty ridiculous. And coupled with starting stream at around like midnight, it really cut into my sleep, and it messed up my sleep schedule, and it was really hard to work and stream. And really what was driving me, was keeping me going, is just the fact that I wanted to quote unquote make it on Twitch so bad, and it wasn't worth it. I almost felt like I was hurting myself, so deciding to take time off the first time was very healthy, and since then I've taken time off a couple of times. In Twitch streaming in general, not just like Punch, but stepping away from the whole content creation thing really helped me out every time that I've done it. And I feel like every time that I do it, I find a little bit more about myself, and it ramps me up into wanting to make more stuff. So I actually just started streaming again. We just came back from another break, and it's been going pretty decently. We've been back for about a month and a half, and getting back into the groove of things really has helped me I guess like put myself on a nice schedule, if that makes sense. Like it's really helped me with routine. Because unfortunately, man, I wasn't even gonna mention this, but there was a an unfortunate tragedy, I guess you could say, in the family, and it really threw me off. It really messed with my routine. It really messed with just the goings on in my life in general. So throwing a little bit of a commitment back into my life definitely helped me out. But before I, ramble on and scramble out into nothingness again, going back to like, the start of the podcast after the first iteration and then going into the second iteration, what happened was I actually wanted to just do an interview based show. I just wanted to interview the friends that I had already made on Twitch and, find people that I enjoyed watching instead of just anybody who I was introduced to, anybody that, I guess came along my way and wanted to be on the podcast. Because what I started noticing was that if I didn't know much about the person, it was really hard to come up with an interview. And getting to know someone live, like on the air type deal, is I guess, a good way to do it. But there's a lot of lulls into like until you find out another question or find something that they're interested in to like continue on with. But I started interviewing, friends that I had already made, and I had stockpiled maybe like 4 or 5 interviews. But that's when that tragedy happened, and I didn't want to. I don't want to continue with it. I felt entirely discouraged. I didn't feel like I was me at all. But we're back at it. We're here. We're doing it up. I'm having a lot of fun, and I'm encouraged enough. I feel like I've mustered up enough confidence to start it all over again. So here we are, and I'm just excited to be back. Um, Dang, it feels good getting all that out. It feels great. Aside starting streams again, I have wanted to do a little bit of YouTube. I have wanted to do some content there because I've been getting some pretty good clips off of the streams. I've been playing Tarkov a lot. Last Wednesday was the PlayStation 2's 20th birthday, so we played GTA 3 and San Andreas. That was pretty cool. It was like a really fun time down memory lane, stroll down memory lane. I asked everybody in chat what their favorite PlayStation 2 games were, and hearing everybody else's favorite games reminded me of how vast the library is for the PlayStation 2. Just knowing that everybody's favorites are so varied and different, and knowing that all of that was offered on one console was a little daunting to think about. It was like we were, I don't want to say blessed because I'm not religious whatsoever, but I don't know any other word. Like we were lucky. There we go. We were lucky to have the PlayStation 2 and the variety of games that came with it. So I said one of my favorites was GTA 3. It wasn't the definitive one for me, but it was the first open world game that I had played. It was the first game that had given me that amount of freedom. So it was really hard for me to move on from it because there wasn't really anything else out at the time that was like it, and it almost spoiled me. I was lucky enough to have a bunch of consoles at the same time because I grew up in a household that had the leftovers of everybody else's childhood, and it was cool to go from like Super Nintendo to PlayStation to I don't know, Nintendo 64 to Atari to the Sega Genesis. Like I had it all. I was very lucky. I was very lucky growing up, video game wise. But once I played GTA 3, it was like hard to go back to anything because there was just so much freedom and being able to explore a world and drive around and mess with people on the streets, and I don't know, it was so much fun. And then being able to play that on stream and share that experience with everybody was really fun. But like I was saying earlier, hearing everybody else's favorite games, like someone brought up Kingdom Hearts 2 or the Kingdom Hearts series. There's Devil May Cry. People brought up the God of War series. Final Fantasy 12 was one of my favorites, but Final Fantasy 10 is the one that was brought up. There is just there's so much like nostalgia going on in chat, and it really felt great to be a part of something like that again. And uh, I don't know. Happy birthday, PlayStation. I know you're never gonna listen to this because you're an inanimate console and an inanimate object, but yeah, there you go. Um, what got me started on this rant? It's the fact that I wanted to make YouTube content, right? And then getting good clips off the stream and taking that for YouTube. We probably won't even talk about YouTube again, but other stuff that I've been playing on stream is Escape from Tarkov. And not even just on stream, but in general, it's eaten up so much of my life. It is literally everything that I think about. Like when I'm at work, I'm thinking about like attachments and different combinations of ammo and how many mags I really should bring and how much extra ammo, just like loose bullets you should bring into raids and stuff. And if you don't know what Escape from Tarkov is, I don't know really how to explain it because it's extensive. There's a lot to it, but essentially it's kind of like a battle royale in which the win state isn't determined by you being the last man standing. You get objectives, or you can go in there just for PvP, or you can go in to loot certain areas on maps that have loot, have weapons or stuff that you can sell on the market and junk. It's really hard to explain, but it's fun. I love it. I've been having fun with my friends despite a few incidents where I've been team killed because there's no HUD, there's no HUD whatsoever. You have to communicate. Like, communication is key in the game because it gets pretty hectic and yeah, maybe I'm just getting flustered thinking about it. Like, yo, I lost pretty good loot there a couple of times. And in case you don't know, if you die in the game, you lose that stuff unless you insure it, and that's only if somebody else doesn't come along and take it. So let's say you do accidentally get killed by one of your friends, they could just take your stuff and not say anything and be like, oh, well, somebody else came along and took your junk. But I digress. Escape from Tarkov is the bee's knees. I haven't had that much fun playing a video game in gosh knows how long, and it's extensive. Like, it's one of those games where you have to think about what attachments are necessary on weapons in order for you to know what attachments could be attached to it, if that makes sense. Oh man, I just said attachment so many times, but you need a certain type of rail in order to put on a certain type of light or a foregrip, and then you need a certain type of like dust cover in order for you to put on an attachment that could put on a scope. It's just so dumb. It's fun. I've learned a lot about a bunch of useless junk, and that's essentially what this podcast is going to be, if I'm going to be completely honest. It's just useless junk. I have a lot to say about nothing, and this is where I'm going to be doing it. Essentially, I'm just going to let y'all know about whatever I've been playing and gaming on, and I pretty much have established that earlier on, but yeah, there you go again. I've said it again. Awesome. But moving on from Escape from Tarkov, I'm trying to think of like what else I've been playing before getting into like music or movies and stuff. Okay, so there's this game called Warface. There we go. There's this game called Warface on the Nintendo Switch. It's probably on mobile because it feels very much like a mobile port. But it's essentially discount Call of Duty. It's free, but it's one of those free, like, war FPS games that has deathmatch and free-for-all and your standard military FPS fare. But the attachments and the weapons and all that stuff are unlocked by the in-game currency, so that's how they get their stuff. And you can't progress in the game with just playing it and being able to unlock stuff that way. But I've noticed that maybe after an hour or two of gameplay, you start going in with people who actually paid to win, and it gets pretty annoying pretty fast. But I'm addicted to that outside of Tarkov, and I felt like mentioning it there. I mean, if any of you are looking for anything on the Nintendo Switch that's free and want to eat up your time playing a discount Call of Duty, even though they literally just announced Warface or whatever. No, that's the name of this game. War something, Warzone, I think. Call of Duty has like a free mode or a free game coming out, but I didn't look it up, so I won't talk about it anymore. All right, so I've been watching. Gosh, what have I been watching? My Hero Academia, and I've been going off from the anime and the manga, back and forth because like once I catch up on the anime, I just go to the manga to see what's ahead. So essentially, I've been being fed the same story twice in both formats, and I don't know, I love it. I'm starting to realize that I have a lot of free time in my hands, and it's probably why I have time to do this in the middle of the night. But yeah, Maybe. um, Other than My Hero Academia and anime, like I don't know, we're ramping on it on the end of this. I was essentially gonna make this an intro only type deal, but then I started talking about other stuff I've been doing, so why the heck not? I wanted to roll with it. Um, I don't know if you guys have seen like the Oscar nom movies. I've been going through a lot of those. I know the Oscars happened like a month ago, gosh dang. But Jojo Rabbit was hilarious. That was a great movie. I love the way it handled its subject matter, and I love that the advertisements really didn't give anything away of the like narrative of the movie because it set itself up to be something, and essentially everything that you. How many times have I said essentially on this fucking podcast? Anyway, um, what happens on the commercials is the first act of the movie, maybe the first 20 minutes of the movie at the very most, and it becomes something else. And it is funny, but it also has a lot of heart. The acting's great. Scarlett Johansson was wonderful, and it's not anything you're expecting. I loved it. I loved it. I had a lot of fun watching it. Other standouts, just any of the ones that are at the top of my head. Parasite, congratulations, winning best whatever it is film, and being the first foreign film to be able to do that. Korean's no good cinema, dude. Telling you. I don't know if that's bad to say, but The Good, the Bad, and the Weird is like one of my favorite movies ever. No, it's not the same director, but I know that's a Korean film. There's this really messed up movie called I Saw the Devil, which is like a horror film, and then there's trying to think, the one that this guy also did, Bong Joon-ho. He also directed, I think, whatever the one that has the river monster in it. That was a lot of fun because it was more of a family dynamic movie than anything else. But anyway, I digress. Parasite is the shiz. Parasite comments on classes and transcends more than just our and their culture. You get me? Like it's so relatable on several different levels, and I adored watching that movie because again, like Jojo Rabbit, it's something that you expect, and it's not what you expect. Like it sets itself up to be something, and then it evolves. It continues being fluid in the way it tells its narrative and the way it tells its story, and I don't even know what to say about the climax. I'm not going to spoil the movie, but it's definitely worth it. It's heart wrenching, and if you like just good cinematography in general, if you like just good film making, Parasite is the shiz. But that kind of segues into like the next thing, the last movie that I want to talk about, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I am a huge Quentin Tarantino fan, and I fully believe that Leo should have gotten his second Oscar alongside Brad Pitt for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. No offense to Joaquin Phoenix, I adored his performance in Joker, but I don't know. I felt like Leo did it correctly. He plays this scrambling, frustrated but eager man that is in this twilight of his career, and you feel it, and Brad Pitt is just so damn cool in that movie. He just cruises along, and that's what he feels like in general as like a person in that film, is like a cruiser, like a real chill, real like taking it easy type dude. Almost reminded me of the dude from The Big Lebowski. Just not as bummy and very capable, because he's Leo stuntman in the film, and that was, it was just so dope seeing their dynamic and seeing him fight, seeing him jump onto a roof and junk. You don't get too much, and then at the very end you get the most of his abilities, but uh, he's a badass. Is what I'm trying to say. It's very very much established in the film. Uh, Dang, dude. I feel like I'm rambling and nothing's making sense, but let's continue on anyway. Um, what do I even have to talk about other than like movies and games and stuff? Like Amnesia. Yo, Amnesia Rebirth is coming out. That was announced the other day or something like that. I don't know much about it, but I know it's something. It's a continuation of the game, and comes out this year, I think. That looks pretty cool. What else is announced? I have stuff written, actually. I know I have a list. I've been trying not to look at it this whole time. Okay. Oh yeah, yo, oh dude, I totally forgot about this. Dude, the Last of Us movie is being replaced with a series on HBO. And not only is it being produced and developed or written or whatever by Neil Druckmann, but the guy who did Chernobyl is attached to it. I don't know his name, and I'm sorry for not knowing his name, but if you've seen Chernobyl, it's a very cold and very brooding sense of fear throughout the entirety of that show, because they have no idea how much this is going to impact them and the area, but we do. And going back and seeing the look of horror and terror on these people's faces as they go through this horrific event is just perfect and in line with the sense of dread that The Last of Us has. There's more desperation, I feel, in The Last of Us. There's more of a visceral approach to its storytelling, but I think both of these people have what it takes to create the Last of Us world in a, I guess, TV format. Gosh, I've said essentially, I guess, and a bunch of, like, stuff throughout this podcast. I'm probably not going to cut any of it out, but I want to do, like, a counter so that I'm aware of my speaking mannerisms. But what else has been announced? I mean, nothing too much. I know that they're gearing up for more Marvel movies, like Black Widow's coming out pretty soon. Excited to see Taskmaster in it. I'm excited to see the fight scenes in general in that movie, because they got the dude who did John Wick, and John Wick's like one of my favorite series right now. Great choreography, fight choreography. But I'm pretty sure those guys could dance if they wanted to. They could probably bust a move. I'm trying to think of what else has been announced, because I don't have anything else written down. Gosh golly. What a terrible first episode. Actually, I really hope this was a great episode. I'm glad if you are still here listening to me talk about nothing. There was the... Oh, okay, so I'm a huge sports guy in general, like, even so to the point where I watched, like, the XFL, which is a newly started football league. But I watch sports in general. I like UFC, I like boxing, I like all that stuff. So that's going to be incorporated into the amalgam of scrambling rambling that I'm going to be doing on the podcast. So I want to take the time to talk about the Joanna Jurjejic, I think her name is. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then the Weili Zhang fight. Is that her name? Dang. I could be wrong on both of those, but these women are genuinely warriors. These women showcased last week why the sport exists. They showcased, like, the most heart I've seen in a slugfest like that in gosh knows how long. Like, the UFC is great, and they've had great fights within this last, couple of years because Dana White is the type of dude to make fights happen. So he's like, yo, no BS. Do you want to fight this guy? Okay, we're gonna make that happen. And he's that type of dude, and I love that. You get that with the UFC, that you get the fights you want to see. So when these women came on before the main fight and stole the night, stole the show, because the fight afterwards sucked, and I'm not even going to talk about it, but theirs was truly one of the best matches I've seen in my entire life. Like, Joanna's technique, like, literally, she would walk her down, she would walk Zhang down and use like this sick Muay Thai style, and she just like really knows how to utilize her length. And I actually thought she won, but Wei Li being the champion and defending and then doing as much damage as she did to her opponent. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you need to look up this fight right now, because Joanna looks like she grew an entire new forehead. It's pretty brutal. It's pretty brutal. And that's not to say that Wei Li didn't go unscathed. Like, she definitely got messed up. But these girls, man, they're tough as hell. They're tough as nails. And I am so happy I got to watch that live. Kind of sucks sometimes, having to pay so much for UFC junk, but it's worth it when you get instant classic matches like that. Gosh golly, dude. Well, I think that's it, dude. I think I've said pretty much all I've had to say. I mean, other than that, there's more gaming stuff like Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing coming out next week, but is next week? It's pretty soon. Comes out the 20th of March, and I'm excited for both of them. I'll definitely be streaming both of those on the days that they come out, which is the same day. And that's going to be flippin' dope on stream. And that'll be a Friday stream. I don't normally stream on Fridays. But yeah, I guess this is the time for plugs and junk. Dang, I didn't talk about music, but I'm gonna digress, and we'll save stuff like that for next time. But yeah, I've been Pika Punch, or Cesar, but you can call me Pika. Here on the Punched podcast, you can definitely find me over on Twitter at Pika_Punch. You could also find me on Twitch at the same thing, Pika_Punch, and on Instagram. But there's a double underscore there because someone else took that name. You bastard. Well, anyway, this was super fun. I had a lot of fun being able to ramble with y'all. Thank you so much for listening to me. If you guys have any suggestions for topics or anything, you can definitely let me know over on Twitter and all the other stuff that I just said. Be on the lookout for Twitch streams on Mondays at 10 p.m. CST, and as well as on Wednesdays. I haven't figured out the date or the time for that, but we'll be establishing that soon. So Mondays and Wednesdays. And yeah, this is dope. Thank you all for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.